You've come straight from a meeting with a Prime Minister who has just weeks left in office. Now, his Defence Secretary quit just over a fortnight ago, saying that the Prime Minister was unable and the Treasury unwilling, and I quote, to commit the resources that the nation needs to defend the country. Did you find him either able or willing to do so now?
I always found him able and willing to do what is necessary. And the UK consistently, over the years, has done what is necessary to defend the United Kingdom, but also to help to defend the whole of NATO territory, because this country understands what is at stake here. That is, we have seen with the war in Ukraine, the Russian build-up, the threat it poses to Europe. We have to do more. And you will always have your national discussions, which, of course, I will not go into, whether you need to spend more or less. But I think the direction of travel, what I'm seeing here in the UK, the extra spend on defence, which I expect to be announced over the coming days or weeks.
Probably tomorrow, we understand.
I heard different timelines on that, but I think it is positive.
Right, positive. But the Defence Secretary quit because the plan that he was being asked to sign off on would, he said, make the country less safe. I mean, is the UK, in your assessment, currently safe from Russian aggression or not? Yes,
it is. Because of what the UK is doing, you have an extremely innovative defence sector. You have, of course, your men and women in uniform. But also the fact that what will happen over the coming days or weeks in terms of extra defence spending will not be the last word on it. It will be a big step towards what is important, the 3.5% we committed in The Hague. So I don't expect the UK to get there in one go, in one big step.
Right.
That will be too much to ask, but I think it will be an important step on the way.
But the 3.5% is by 2035, and current UK plans, unless you know something we don't, see us getting only to 2.68% by 2030. There's no concrete timetable to get to 3%. You know, that. How much more work does Keir Starmer's successor need to do?
I think what you will see is that the UK will make a big step, which is one, which will not get you to the 3.5, but a big step on the way to the 3.5%, which will mean there is more necessary. But I think that will also be acknowledged, that there is more to be done over the coming years. But hey, we don't have committed to get to the 5% or the 3.5 core defence spending in one big leap.
Right.
Germany will reach it in 2029. We see Poland and the Baltic states having already reached it, but other countries are behind the United Kingdom. So in the end, what we committed as 32 allies is to reach the 3.5% with a credible path to get there by latest 2035. And this big step helps by building that credible path.
Yeah, but the credible path isn't there in terms of the steps along the way. You know, that the end game is sort of there in the distance. But do you get a sense that the UK has now gripped that there needs to be those staging posts along the way?
Yes, I think that's absolutely the intent. Not only because that is something we agreed in The Hague, but because it is deeply felt in the government, in political circles, that we do this for a reason. And the reason is that the world has changed since the Cold War ended and the Berlin Wall came down. And we have seen over the last 5 to 10 years how Russia is rapidly building up its armed forces. We see China investing heavily in its military. We see China, North Korea, Iran and Russia working together. We have seen a terrible, unprovoked onslaught on Ukraine. So for all these reasons, we cannot be naive. We need to spend the money we need to spend.
And so the intent is there from the current Prime Minister, but he's only there for a few weeks longer. Do you have any sense that the intent is also there from his successor, expected to be Andy Burnham?
Well, obviously, there's only one Prime Minister at a time, and that's Keir Starmer. Of course, I know that he will leave office, and Andy Burnham, it seems, is... well, you don't have to be a political whiz-kid to predict that he might become the next Prime Minister. But what I know from this country over the last 67... Irvin Bevan, he was he the name?
Yeah.
Ernest Bevin. He was the Foreign Secretary in the Attlee government. He was one of the founders of NATO. So this country was at the start of NATO. It was the Labour Party at the start of NATO. So I have every confidence that whoever is Prime Minister, that will be there. And by the way, don't forget that this is not only because we have to defend ourselves, this is also because there is a defence dividend coming from this. And that has to do with the fact that these investments will also lead to more jobs. You have a very successful defence sector, defence industrial sector in the United Kingdom. I will meet with industry leaders tonight in Brussels, also from the UK, and I'm absolutely convinced these extra investments will also lead to more economic growth, to more jobs.
So would your message to Andy Burnham, who's talked about prioritising the cost of living, but, he wants to get the UK economy growing again, defence is the way to do this, Andy?
It is an important element. I'm sorry, I have no messages for him because, first of all, I guess he will be the next Prime Minister. But again, I now work with Keir Starmer, and as soon as he comes in, if that is the case, I look forward to work with him. But I have every confidence that there is a continuity of strategy, of purpose in this country. When it comes to the Labour governments, when it comes to the Conservative governments, look at what Maggie Thatcher did when it comes to defence, and John Major, and of course Cameron, but also, again, look at Tony Blair and Gordon Brown. So there is a consistent realization that this country has to be on the forefront, and it has always been in NATO. You were one of the few countries who was consistently spending above the 2% we agreed to in 2014 in Wales. I think till a couple of years ago, there were only 3 countries spending 2%. One of them, the UK. And again, I expect the UK to be on the forefront.
Well, except it's currently a sort of laggard towards the bottom of the table on rearmaments. And so
when you look at the overall defence spending, you are still in the top 10 at the moment.
Right. But if there's any backsliding, and let's face it, room for manoeuvre is very tight. Taxes and borrowing are record highs. So your message to whoever comes next about the importance, the urgency of this defence spending?
Yes, and I was Prime Minister for 14 years in my country, the Netherlands, so I know that there is always this extremely difficult discussion going on between all the different priorities for a government. And of course, but at the end of the day, keeping your country safe is the first task. Mm-hmm. The second task immediately following that is making sure you have a strong economy. The interesting thing about defence spending is it keeps the country safe. There is a fierce urgency of now when you look at the Russian build-up and what China is doing. But there is also an impact on that second big priority, which is jobs, which is economic growth, because there will be, it will have an impact on that, a positive impact.
I know you say you'll look forward to meeting Andy Burnham if and when he's confirmed as Prime Minister. But, he's been mayor of a town, to quote your friend Donald Trump. He's been Health Secretary and Culture Secretary. He doesn't have any sort of foreign affairs experience. Does that concern you?
Not at all, because but what you see with most Prime Ministers, when they come in, except for when they have been Defence Secretary or Foreign Secretary before, but most of them will come in with, there's a lot of political clout, a lot of political experience. But when it comes to the international stage, you have the best advisors in this country. You have fantastic ambassadors, fantastic security advisors, fantastic senior military advisors in the Defence Department, who will help the Prime Minister to get up and running in a couple of days. So I have no doubt. And your Prime Ministers are generally smart people, so they will get it. And potentially David Miliband could be Foreign Secretary, is the rumour. Well, I'm not going to speculate who will do what. I was Prime Minister of the Netherlands, not of the United Kingdom. But I'm always impressed by the quality of your senior politicians and the speed by which they understand the issues and then drive the issues, because this is what we need. Keir Starmer, and let me say this, when it comes to Ukraine, when it comes to international affairs, he has been driving the agenda. He has been agenda setting over the last 2 years, and I thanked him for that this morning. He is still there. He will be there at the NATO summit. So I think this country was better off having him as Prime Minister. What, better off than what might come next? No, better off in the sense that he was willing to make that sacrifice to become Prime Minister of this country. And I think he did when it comes to the whole international political arena. He did extremely well. He was, again, very important last week in the G7, what I heard from many sources, because he understands that it is about purpose and it is about atmospherics. It is also about the diplomatic part of the job. Would you support him potentially to succeed you as NATO Secretary General? I read all these rumours, but hey, let's first make sure that he ends the job at a moment of the choosing of the British political system, that success will be there, and I wish him well, whatever he's going to do. You're not denying that you would, you'd be a supportive voice. I'm in this role now, so there's no vacancy. Right. There's a conflict of interest there. Yeah. But you're sad to see him go as Prime Minister. I genuinely like the guy. He is decent. He knows what he is doing. He is influential. He has purpose. When it comes to Ukraine, for example, the fact that this country is leading the coalition of the willing, is leading the Ukraine Defense Contact Group, is now leading, together with France, on the Strait of Hormuz and regaining the freedom of navigation when it comes to the Strait of Hormuz. This prime minister is really driving that. So, hey, you guys decide who is prime minister of the United Kingdom. I will work with everybody who is in that role. But he did well over the last 2 years.
But whoever ends up running NATO, I mean, clearly Keir Starmer has the credentials for a top international job, from what you've said.
But let's first see what he wants to do. I have no idea what his plans are. Let's see.
Apparently he's quite keen. Let's talk about next week's NATO summit. Speaking to Sky News last year, you called Donald Trump the daddy of NATO.
No, I didn't. I said to him, this is, and I made a mistake, so I completely own this now. But what I said is, when he had been angry with the Israelis and the Iranians the day before he came to The Hague, I said, sometimes daddy has to be forceful. Okay. I meant father. I later realized that daddy has so many other connotations. So when he came home, he made this video, Daddy is home. So he owned it. Yeah. And this is why I like him, because he has that humor.
All right, so you don't feel you were sort of played by him in that way?
No, I loved how he then made my mistake and owned it himself. And I own the mistake. This is my job.
But is daddy, father, about to walk out on the kids? Are you worried about that?
The US is totally invested in NATO, because the US understands that NATO provides, look at Iran, 4,000 to 5,000 sorties from European bases to in the context of Epic Fury. The US could not have done this without Europe as a big power projection platform. And then NATO providing them the ability to strike deep, to control the major choke points of the world, to have industrial depth, to prevent the nuclear submarines from Russia ending up at the US shores. For all these reasons, the US is in NATO, not only to protect Europe, but also because there is a direct interest for the United States itself.
Yeah, but he says that NATO hasn't been there for America, you know, over Iran, for example. He says NATO's a paper tiger.
There is disappointment, and I discussed this last week again with him in the White House, but I also pointed out to the fact that these are isolated cases, and that when you look at the overwhelming picture, 4,000 to 5,000 planes taking off from Bucharest to the United Kingdom, to France, to so many other countries in Europe, basically implementing the bilateral basing agreements these countries have with the US.
Just finally, Andy Burnham is most likely set to become the 7th British Prime Minister in 10 years. You were the longest-serving Dutch Prime Minister. What are the secrets of political longevity?
Listening. So in coalition politics, what I learned over the years, and the same now in NATO, spend 90% of your time listening and only 10% of the time talking. Of course, this interview is not a good example, but now I have to answer your questions. And also British politics and American politics, in the end, is coalition politics, because you might think there's only one party in power, but in the end, these parties are big 10 parties with many factions within the party. So in the end, it is all coalition politics. That's the only thing I learned over the years. Spent more time listening than talking, and I wish him or her, whoever is the new Prime Minister, and it might be the former mayor of Manchester, I wish him well.
Mark Rutte, it's been great listening to you today on The Sofa. Thank you.
Good to be back.